3, 2, 1. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another exciting film journey here on Inside Movies Galore. I am one of your hosts, and today we are going on about a film that I chose for part of my birthday a month, as Brandon gets the second half and I get the first. So the film that I had y'all go on about is a relatively newer film from 2021 called Last Night in Soho, and it was directed by Edgar Wright, written by Edgar Wright, and Christy Wilson Cairns, at least screen-wise and story. Stars Thomasin McKenzie, and Taylor Joy, Matt Smith, Diana Rigg, Amy Cassettary, Rita Tushington, Colin Mace, and many others. So, let us see what IMDb says about the film, and then we'll go into first impressions here. An aspiring fashion designer is mysteriously able to enter the 1960s, where she encounters a dazzling wannabe singer. But the glamour is not all it appears to be, and the dreams of the past start to crack and splinter into something darker. So, heading into first impressions here, let's start at the end here with Tammy. Was this a first time watch for you?
No, actually, we watched it not long, I think, after it came out, because we saw the ads and it seemed like really interesting. So, but yeah, it was. I really like I like the time that it was set. I thought that was really neat. I thought the storyline was pretty cool, especially when you realize what's really going on. So, but yeah, I felt that that they did a good job of setting the time, setting the scenes, and wardrobe, all that stuff. So it made for it made for a very good movie of that time, and it kept you intrigued as to what was really going on, trying to figure it out. Almost kind of like as much as she was trying to figure it out, you were trying to figure it out. So
Mhm.
I had a lot of fun watching it. Sure didn't mind watching it again. So
Okay. Is that pretty much it then for you?
yep.
Alrighty. Heading over to you, Brandon. Was this a first time watch for you?
Yeah, well, actually, no, this is not my first time. I've watched this a couple of times now. It's a really good one. When Forrest first put this up for the Versus Awards last year, I had been on my radar and I decided, you know what, I guess I will see it. And it was a really pleasant surprise. I really did enjoy this one. I thought that it was really fun, imaginative, and had a really cool ending. This one's one that I definitely wholeheartedly really liked, and it was a pleasure to see it again.
Okay.
That is that.
What about you, Kroll? Was this a first time watch for you?
Actually, yes. I think I heard of it in passing. I actually thought it was a much older movie. I'm not sure which movie I was thinking of, but when I saw 2021, I actually asked you guys if this was the right movie, because the movie I was thinking of was like 80s or something. I thought Brandon had picked it. It actually feels like a Brandon movie. I don't know. psychological,
I think so.
Yeah, I just kind of thought it more seemed like one of your movies. Definitely not the schlock that you pick usually, Dave. But we won't talk about Sunday's pick ever again. But anyways, yeah, I really enjoyed it. I actually I had my eyes pretty much glued onto my TV set, which honestly sometimes it's not. As much as I try. Some movies just don't capture my attention that well. But yeah, this is I was really intrigued with it. Really just kind of trying to figure out what's going on. I'm like, did she become this girl, or like it's just kind of weird. Like you just don't know what the heck's going on at first. Is it a dream? Is she actually go back in the past? Is she like she is this girl, but she's herself too, and so it's very confusing, but it's very intriguing. It's like you want to figure out what's going on, and I mean you kind of get the gist that stuff happened before because her grandmother was saying you see people or whatever. So I'm thinking maybe it's kind of like she sees dead people type thing. I guess in a way, but a little more deep than that. She actually feels things they felt and stuff, and like she got that hickey on her neck and stuff, and it's kind of like Sixth Sense, times 10. Instead of a little boy, it's a girl, and not bad looking girl, especially as blonde. I mean, she wasn't bad. She looked younger as a brunette, but I think as a blonde, she looked a little bit older and a little bit hotter, in my opinion. So I thought that was a cool change they did. But yeah, I mean, I figured out, who the girl was at the end, right before the reveal. So I did figure it out, not too soon, but right before. The other guy, the old man, I thought like she did. I thought he was Jack, whatever. But so I didn't figure that out until it was revealed to her. I was like, oh damn. But yeah, it's a really good movie. It's strange. Definitely got good twists in it. Like I said, you're not even sure exactly what's going on with the movie itself. Never mind trying to unravel who did what to whom and the whole thing. It just yeah, it's definitely an awesome movie. I really liked it. Definitely 2 thumbs up, 3 thumbs up if I had another thumb. So my 2 cents worth.
Okay. Heading over to you, Jake. Was this a first time watch for you?
Well, first of all, I want to say it's strange that Carl said that this didn't seem like a Dave movie, because it turns out that my brother is apparently getting HBO Max at the moment, and I used it to watch this. And you know what movie it brought up at the end and said, you might want to watch this next? It was Don't Worry, Darling. I'm like, okay, well, Dave, do you secretly work for HBO Max?
No.
But anyway, this is definitely not a first-time watch. I did watch this to prepare for the Versus Awards. I honestly can't remember. I know it was on my radar when it hit theaters, but I missed it in theaters. And I want to say it was because Dave and Forrest were raving about it that I felt like I got to go back and watch it. I can't remember if I watched it in the nomination process or afterwards, but I did watch it during that major run of movie watching last year. And there's a few reasons why it was on my radar. First of all, it did have a really cool, I think the poster was actually a nominee. It had a pretty cool poster. But I am fast becoming a very big fan of Anya Taylor-Joy. She's a little odd looking, but she's a very gifted actress, and I generally have enjoyed what I've seen her in, or heard her in. She, of course, is the voice of Peach in the new Mario movie. So, and I'm a pretty big fan of Edgar Wright. I enjoyed Shaun of the Dead. I loved Hot Fuzz. I loved Scott Pilgrim versus World, which we've already covered. Y'all should check that discussion out if you haven't already. I love Baby Driver. So, I haven't seen At World's End yet. I need to see that. And I saw the short that he did for Grindhouse Don't, which was okay. But it was fun. So I've seen some Edgar Wright. I've seen some Anya Taylor-Joy. And I didn't realize it, but I'd seen some Thomasin McKenzie. She co-starred in Jojo Rabbit, and last year she was busy. She was in this, Power of the Dog, and Old, so some pretty notable stuff during that time frame. So, and Terrence Stamp, of course, he's that's a name that's well known. So there was a lot going for it in terms of getting my interest. I did watch it, and it pretty much did not disappoint. I see a description here on IMDb that said, "What if Hitchcock and Dario Argento had a nephew that loved Agatha Christie novels?"
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I could see that. But what I see even more is if Hitchcock's Marnie and Argento's, let's say, Suspiria, which I know was name-checked in a couple of scenes in this movie, were married with Woody Allen's Midnight in Paris. That's more what I see, because the premise is very similar to Midnight in Paris. Someone who's obsessed with an era gets the chance to go back in time after a fashion. And, of course, it does not go as they expect that it will go. But this has a much darker, more Argentonian, Hitchcockian, Christian vibe to it. It does get weird and twisty toward the end. It is the closest to a horror film I've seen yet from Wright. Shaun of the Dead being a little bit more of a comedy, generally, supposedly. So, and one thing that is typical of him is it has a kick-ass soundtrack, and he is good with the kick-ass soundtracks. He's always spot on with the production values. I was very impressed with the film when I saw it, but it was and remains in my mind a weird movie that I don't really know where to place. But it's a good one. I'm glad I got to see it again. If I had realized I would actually get a chance to watch it on the big TV, I would have gone ahead and gotten a Blu-ray copy, but I'm still waiting on that. But that'll give me an excuse to watch it a third time. So one of these days. But yeah, it was it's a good one. And I guess that's all I gotta say about it at the moment. I'm glad I got a chance to give it another look.
Okay. Well, I remember Tammy seeing the ads for this first, and then when I finally found a copy, we ended up watching it, and I ended up liking it. I mean, Kroll, you'll know Anna Joy from The Northman. And that was the actress in the Northman opposite the True Blood star. So yeah, I love noir.
Oh yeah.
Not to mention Ileana Rasputin and the New Mutants. And a number of other good ones. Dave, do you ever see the movie Thoroughbreds? That would be up your alley.
I have not. Is that with?
I think that was the first thing I saw her in.
Was that with Daniel Day-Lewis?
No. It was
Okay.
I need to double check who her co-star was, but it was two girls who were getting up to no good. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I love noir, and that's kind of what this kind of is, like a modern day noir. But I like that it was, even though it wasn't set in the 60s, it had a lot of 60s music. And
Olivia Cook and Anton Yelchin were her co-stars in Thoroughbreds. Yeah.
I do get a kick out of the Cockney accents that people display, actors and actresses displayed in this movie. Something about it. I mean, the fact that there was a Doctor Who in here, so yeah. At least one of the Doctor Who's that was on the 2005 series. That was the main guy that Sandy kept seeing at first.
Jack.
Yeah, Jack. That was played by Matt Smith, and he was one of the Doctor Who's.
Yeah, but I kept saying who because Doctor Who. I knew I recognized him from somewhere, but I actually haven't seen Doctor Who, the shows, but I've seen posters and whatever commercials and everything. So I definitely recognize him from somewhere. So I'm glad you brought it up.
I did enjoy the psychological aspect of the film as well. I mean, the first time watching it, you didn't know exactly what was happening until it actually was revealed. So that was something that the film had it in its favor. I definitely think there's a lot of value in the costume designing behind the film, and I definitely love the colors that were shown throughout the film. I love all that neon stuff. So it was enjoyable, and I'm glad that I was able to bring this film to the table. So
I think I have to agree with you on the you get more out of it after you watch it the second time, I think, than the first time. Just because of what kind of a film it is. So I don't think you get like everything the first time around. I think it's one of those you get more when you watch it the second time.
Which is always a good thing for a movie with a twist, because if it's one where you're like, I saw the twist, now I can't watch it anymore.
Like
it's not really a good twist.
Yeah.
Like the Sixth Sense with that ending. Like once you see it, it's like, God darn it, I can't really watch this again. It won't have the same feel, but that being said, let's get into the plot line here. So we have a young girl. Not exactly sure where she's coming from. I think it's somewhere in the UK.
Well, definitely, it's the English countryside, and I believe she said Cornwall.
Okay. And I know that she kind of lives with her either grandmother or aunt. I think it was her aunt. And I guess she really looks up to her, and she really wants to become a fashion designer, and she's really into all this 1960s music already. But there is something underlying in her family that her mother actually had passed away, or a kind of like mysteriously, and we learn that as the film goes along. That it's suggestive that she actually might have actually had some kind of second sight, which I think it's not entirely like drawn out to us. It's
Yeah,
kind of like given to us as the film progresses, you know. But
what is? I'm not quite sure I follow what you're saying.
that her mother died,
Yeah.
and that she might have actually had second sight. Like
Okay.
she might have actually had like the powers.
I thought for a few minutes that maybe the other woman was her mother, like she was like in her mother's body. But then, you know, like when she had sex, I'm like, oh, that's just too fucking weird to think. So, but yeah, I was kind of thinking that because yeah, I mean, I see where you're getting with that thought because I was kind of thinking that, you know, maybe her mother was involved somehow or something.
Well,
Some way. Yeah, her mother had died. I think what had happened is her mother had gone to London to like pursue whatever she was going to pursue. Like, I don't think they actually said it, but she went to London and then she died in London. But they never really said exactly how she died or what happened.
no, she had phone conversations with her aunt where she said where
Was
her
not her
aunt
grandma?
was like,
Was not her grandmother?
That was her grandmother.
that was
Yeah.
her grandmother. Okay.
That's so.
She had phone conversations with her grandmother where she said, you know, you could always call me. Your mother never did.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm
So
saying.
Well, she admitted the first night that she was there to that
Yeah.
girl that
Yeah, she told them straight up that her mother killed herself.
Yeah, it's
Oh, killed herself. Okay, I missed that part.
yeah, it's one of those things. When I heard this at the beginning, I thought it was I thought it was mental illness at first, and because there's a lot of that, and it almost, oy. And it also came across like that because the way that they said like this incident, or are you seeing her again? Like it was looked at like that. But then also the grandmother said it was a gift. So that's something there. Now I never did think that that Sandy was her mother just because um, of the age of the person, and I'll admit, if this was a film taken back in my time, I would agree that somebody that young in the 60s could have been my mother. But somebody that's that young in the present time, it would be the 80s. So, as sad as that feels.
Plus, they show her,
90s.
she sees her mother throughout the film, and she looks nothing like Sandy. So I
Yeah.
never even thought that.
So, yeah, I didn't really ever think that when it was there. Though I did find it interesting that, and again, that line between mental illness and clairvoyance is very thin.
Mm-hmm.
I know the first time that I watched the movie, I actually did think that there was a mental health thing going on, but in the end, it was definitely a clairvoyance thing.
yeah,
And watching this movie again, I will say that seeing this a second time was very rewarding, which is much better than something, say, like The Sixth Sense, because the twist is one of the good things about a good twist movie is not just the twist, but the fact that you can go back through the movie and
Right.
get more enjoyment out of it. Like the old man character, knowing what the old man character really was, it brings an entirely different feel to the performance.
Now, in my case, I had forgotten so much of my original run through that I kind of forgot how the movie ended. So I wasn't totally, I was kind of in a middle ground where I knew to look at things a little differently, I think, than a first time viewer would. But I wasn't looking at it with, oh, well, this is where it's going. So let's see how they get there, A, B, and C. You know what I mean? Like, so that was kind of fun too, you know?
well, regardless, she is on a journey, so she does take a train to get to where she is going.
Mhm.
She is going to a very prestigious school, apparently. Was it Juilliard? No.
No, that's in New York.
Okay. No, it was something similar to that name.
Yeah.
But she gets okay. So she gets this pervy taxi driver first off, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who I guess if I were a young female like riding in a taxi,
As a former taxi driver, I say, hey, I resemble that. I'm just kidding.
yeah, but he came off kind of pervy.
Yeah, I mean, I've like said nice things, but never that pervy to their face. Afterwards, maybe, you know. But
And I think that was intentional. So she gets out early.
yeah,
to,
she
uh,
definitely
walk
he
around.
definitely treats her.
And if it wasn't for her getting out early, she probably wouldn't have met that um, young man outside who seemed to be drawn to her right off. And he ended up being like someone in her class. So
Yeah, they would have met, but it was a different.
Oh yeah, they definitely would have. I mean, they first met at the party,
It allowed him to.
you know. So I mean, they definitely would have met. But
I think it allowed him to see. Oh, I like this girl. Yeah.
and of course she eventually gets inside and she finds apparently the room in which that she's supposedly supposed to have dorm mates, and she meets this,
Bitch.
fucked up bitch.
basically.
Absolutely self-absorbed, terrible, terrible human being.
But we're in the dead mothers club.
One of your self-righteous, almost classic, stereotypical society.
Well, I don't know because most bitches just act completely like a bitch, but in some parts she kind of acted like she was a friend, but not really. You know, like she was like, I don't know, she wasn't like 100% bitch, but you knew she was. You knew she wasn't really trying to be friends.
Well, Jocasta was definitely a queen bee type. There's no
Yeah,
question.
yeah, she definitely was queen bee
And
type,
she
but
was
she
manipulative.
she wasn't like a Cordelia and Buffy. Like she just doesn't.
She was a queen bee and she was a narcissist. And
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it was
She was
definitely
testing out the
different,
waters.
a little bit of a different take on the type of character, but yeah.
I think she was just testing out the waters in the very first meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't seem too bad, except for the dead mothers thing once the friends came in. But at first, she kind of was like, "Oh, hey, we're bonding over it," you know.
I think really what it was with her is she was testing to see if she could be another member of her clique.
Right.
When it came to the dead mother angle, and then she had talked about her mother dying, she looked at it as being one-upped. And that was when the friendship turned to, the potential friendship turned to, no, I'm the one with the dead mother. I'm the one who should get all the attention. Boom, boom.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Not that it's a competition. I was like, holy shit.
Oh, no, it's not. Because she's a narcissist. No one could beat her, so it's not a competition. But
right, but I'm just saying, they're talking about dead mothers. Like,
I think the first hint
nobody wins in that situation.
the first hint's even before that, though, where she's like, so where are you from? And I think she said Cornwall or whatever, and she's like, I'm sorry. And she's like, no, you don't. She's like, from Cornwall, something like that, like, thought she didn't hear her or whatever. And she's like, oh, no, I'm sorry. You know, and it's like, okay, someone doesn't think much of the country or people that come from it.
Well, and then she
Yeah.
tried to be all nicey about.
Yeah.
She said she made her own clothes. Oh, okay. That looks really nice, you know.
Yeah.
But you could tell that she was like turning her nose up to her clothes.
Well, yeah, because she's all modern and she's wearing name brands, and this other girl has got homemade clothes that clearly are from the 60s and clearly have a countrified vibe, not a city vibe at all. Which
I
up
guess
until
automatically
then,
kind of makes her an
yeah,
oddball,
yeah,
just for that sake. But that's nothing to really like snub your nose at anyone for. That just makes them
yeah,
different, you know. But
yeah.
she has her meet her other clique and cliche friends, and they all decide to go down to Soho, uh,
Mm-hmm.
which is apparently where they tend to gather for drinks and other various things that they do in the night. And yeah, so she already feels like an oddball, and then that lead queen bee just kind of throws her to the wolf in a sense, because she like suggests that, hey, if you if you to this one guy, if you go over to her, she'll probably uh, give you a little something, or you know, making her into kind of
Little
a,
some.
yeah. And she's just having none of it. She ends up taking her drink and uh, goes downstairs and into a bathroom, and she overhears what the girls are saying about her and how they think that she's kind of a goody two shoes and whatnot and what have you. And she ends up, I believe, running into the young man that has kind of taken an interest in her. And I believe, oh, then we kind of get a montage of how it's like in the dorm for her, because she's listening to her music. People are partying in her dorm room. She's unable to get sleep, and I believe they're after the one party, after a dude fucks with her. She realizes that she's late for class. What do y'all think?
She goes to sleep and wakes up the next day without benefit of an alarm or anything, and then she's like, "Oh shit!"
But yeah, so we do get kind of a sense that she doesn't really like the situation that she's in. So eventually, she finds her way. I guess she's walking down a certain street, and she finds advertisement for this place and flat that she ends up calling, and it turns out to be a room upstairs of an old club, I believe, that is run by an elderly lady. I believe her name is Alice or Alex. Alex. Her name is Alex.
No, she all right. She calls herself Mrs. Collins, but she might have said Alex. I must have missed that.
She's Mrs. Collins to her at first, because she doesn't know her first name. Eventually, we find out it's Alex Collins later on. Yeah, I guess she's got some rules. She doesn't like smokers. She doesn't like gentlemen after dark. And it's got its own kitchenette
after 8, specifically 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
Yep.
she's very particular about that stuff, and she wants 2 months rent ahead of time, which is a little bit more than some.
And a 2-month deposit.
And the deposit, because she's had trouble with people before just leaving. So, and what do y'all think about that place?
So she
And
says.
how she got to that particular disposition? How did you? Was there anything that you guys wanted to talk about?
You know what they say about things that seem too good.
One thing I noticed this time around was just the interesting spooky luck about her finding the ad on the floor of that place where the bulletin board was. There's just something like just otherworldly about that, finding it that way.
Yeah, just a little bit. Just a little bit.
I noticed that too. It was fun.
So she says yes to the place, and she moves in right away, I believe, and I believe it's this first night that she goes to sleep, and she's immediately like in this other world of 1960s. She finds out that the girl that she is apparently appearing like in mirrors. In fact, I believe it's the place right across the street from where she's living that she ends up being in.
First she goes into the Café du Paris.
Yeah,
but I believe it's the Rialto that's across the street from her.
that's where.
But a fun note about that, they did a lot of trickery with mirrors to make some of these scenes work, but apparently the first time that we see Anya Taylor-Joy, it is done practically. And to make it happen practically, they brought in James and Oliver Phelps for a cameo. So I didn't quite register in my brain at the time, but now I'm like, I need to watch this with it in mind that the Weasley twins show up briefly in here. But yeah, that was kind of fun.
And Sandy, she is dressed in like a baby doll pink dress that you would almost think that would have been worn like at nighttime while she was in bed, and it really does a number to her figure.
And it's very delicate looking and very frothy. And when she tries to recreate it later in class, her teacher's like, this is going to be a very difficult fabric and all this kind of stuff. And kind of reminds me of the Young Frankenstein. Taffeta, darling. Oh, yes, taffeta. No, this is taffeta. If you wrinkle it, it'll... makes me wonder, did they say exactly what it was? Was it, did they say what the fabric actually was?
I do believe that they said something about it, but I didn't exactly catch what it was. She really looked fantabulous on the dance floor once we get her, and she obviously knows how to act towards the doorman as she goes through, and I guess she meets Jack apparently before she hits the dance floor. In fact, he seems right away interested in her. And
she goes to the bartender and says, "I'm going to be on that stage."
Yeah,
and
she looked over at Jack before the bartender said something, so she kind of had him in her eye, and then the bartender's like, "See the guy over there? He's the one you want to talk to." And then basically tells him I'm a singer. He's like, oh, well, can you dance? And she's like, well, let me show you. And that's when she started going on the dance floor, taking him with her.
Mm-hmm.
And he's first smoking a cigarette and drinking, and he then just tossing the cigarette around, and yeah,
Can I
still
have
drank
a
while he danced with her, but yeah.
Yeah, her drink of choice is asking for a Vespa, and he
Mm-hmm.
starts to go off in search of a drink for her when another guy who seems to be kind of a lecherous creature.
Yeah, he was the first. He had on her the second she walked in.
You know what's funny is that we actually had Vespers last night.
Yeah, they were good.
And I'm sitting there,
Wait,
why does she want to
were
cut
they
it?
shaken or stirred? I didn't ask.
Shaken, not stirred.
Aha.
But what's interesting here on the dance floor is this whole interaction of him dancing with her, and you see our main actress dancing with him as well. And it's great cinematography.
That was incredible choreography. Originally I thought, holy crap, the editing in this film is phenomenal. But from what I understand, that was actually done that was more camera work and careful choreography than editing. So I give them props either way, because that was some really cool visual tricks they pulled on that sequence.
Yeah, they made you really feel like our main actress was in fact in or living the life of this girl Sandy, which we find out that she is an aspiring singer, and it's through this meeting of this Jack character that she is able to elicit an audition to become a singer, or at least that's what she thought she was.
So she thinks.
But that is, I believe, a different night. Because
The following night.
correct. I believe she wakes up from this dream of being in the 60s and has to go to class again. And it's an interesting film all throughout because of this going back to the 60s each night. It's like as soon as she goes to sleep, boom, she's there. But then as the film picks up, we get a sense of her not knowing where reality ends and where reality begins, because all of a sudden, you know, these appearances of the 60s is just kind of fastly unraveling the story, at least, of these ghosts and, you know, the violence of what happened, you know. So
it's rapidly turning from an idyllic, like, holy crap, this is what I always dreamed of, to holy shit, what is going on? You know, it's turned from an Audrey Hepburn film into a Dario Argento film, more or less, and she doesn't know what to make of it.
No, and some of the stuff that goes on in this 60s world is coming into her reality in the present. Like, she's changing her hairstyle. She starts buying diva dresses, you know, and these 60s dresses are not that cheap.
As she finds out.
Which is...
And Well, and she starts noticing little details. Like you mentioned, she finds out, wait a minute, I'm right across the street from this one place. You know, she starts noticing the places from her dreams taking, you know, shape in the present.
Oh yeah. And she ends up realizing that her obsessions with the close of the '60s and the rent coming up, she needs a job. So she does end up going and looking for a job as a bartender in a pub that is run by an older woman, and there is also a man who appears to be acting strange around her, like um, and he is an elderly looking man. And as the film progresses, she starts to believe and think in her mind that this man, played by Terrence Stamp, is in fact the older version of this Jack character that was in her dreams.
He actually pays her very little mind until she dyes her hair. He comes off as kind of an old lech at first, but he takes a special interest once she changes her look.
Yeah, even Mrs. Collins didn't recognize her when she came back with that haircut. And she was like, "Oh yeah, it's me," and she's like, "Oh, you changed your hair,
Right.
and you like that '60s music, although that's more like my music."
Actually, I think one of my favorite, I don't remember the exact line, but I think one of my favorite lines is where they're talking about that, and Eloise says something to the effect of, I just don't really feel much about today's music or something like that. I think it was better back then. And then without missing a beat or arguing at all, Miss Collins is just like, yeah, it was. Like I said, I don't remember the exact quote, but she's pretty much like, yeah, today's music sucks.
And I do believe that Mrs. Collins is actually played by Diana Rigg, which he played in the original The Avengers
and
TV
this
series.
was her final role. Yeah. She passed away after they wrapped production, but I think 2 years before the movie came out, or a year before. And Margaret Nolan also plays a barmaid, also died about a month later. So 2 of the cast members died before the movie came out, which
Yeah.
is unfortunate.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do believe that she is in fact starting to have a relationship with that young a young man. I'm trying to see what his name was here.
Are you talking about Ellie's friend, John?
Yeah.
Yeah, his name was John.
Okay, yeah. His name was John.
He's played by Michael Ajao. I'm not really sure what else he's really done. But,
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
Yeah.
But he's definitely an interesting character too, because he does, in fact, really like her, and it seems like, okay, so she ends up having a party. I believe it's a Halloween party that she goes to. That apparently the two kind of hook up. Them two kind of hook up, and I guess they end up back at the flat, and they begin to have, sex up there. But she is experiencing the first of the flashes of the violence part of the the
I don't know
scene.
if it was the very first, because
No,
things
it
were going
wasn't.
downhill for a while. This was like the end of it all, where
Yeah.
she supposedly died. That was the end. Well, at
She,
least so she
yeah,
thought.
she had been seeing violence happening for a while. She'd been seeing the faceless men, but I think this may have been her first vision where she thought that Sandy was killed, maybe. But
Yeah,
yeah, half the reason he took her to the party was that she was so freaked out, and he was trying to give her something to calm her, kind of take her mind off things.
yeah, and the the party was interesting because she started seeing the flashbacks then.
Right.
And then once they actually started having sex up in the flat, that's when it started to boil. The vision um, of what she thought was the murder of the Sandy, and I believe that's what kickstarted a lot of the next next couple of scenes because of that. And I know John was kind of like when it all started going down. He was worried that she would probably cry rape or something like that in that moment.
Yeah.
Because Miss Collins, she came up and started banging on the door, and she said that she was going to call the cops. He started getting his pants on, and he didn't know what the heck was going on, except for the fact that she was seeing something, and she couldn't tell him exactly what was going on. She seemed to be in a trance.
Yeah.
What do y'all think about that moment there?
Well, he moved quick. Good thing too. Miss Collins claimed she would have killed him if she caught him.
But
yeah, it was interesting.
I believe it was shortly after this that she actually went to I think it was after that she went over to. That's right. She went back to school the next day.
Well,
And
she went to the police.
Yeah.
I think she went to the police
tried to
later,
report
though.
the murder.
I'm pretty sure she went to the police later after that. Because
Wasn't
didn't she run out of
She
the,
ran out
of
of
the
the
class,
design,
and that's when she went to the police?
but it was before she did her research.
Yeah. Yeah. The research is when she almost stabbed the pitchy girl.
Yeah.
She should.
They told basically the police. The guy clearly was just amusing her, and then she heard him mocking her to other police people. But the woman who'd been talking with her more pitied her, clearly thought she was crazy, and kept offering her help. But she also said, "We will look into it, but you need to bring us something concrete, like a name." So that's why she started doing the research.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Correct, but she was also working on a design or several designs for her class, and there was a moment where she kept seeing Sandy in the same place as her person that was wearing her design that she was trying to design the dress for, and she literally ran out of there and down the hall. And I think that's when she actually went to the pub, ran into Terrence Stamp's character, and he gave her bad vibes.
Yeah.
And in fact, he was playing the song called Eloise because that was her name.
This was, I think the part you're talking about is after the library sequence, because this was where she had actually found herself collapsed on the street with the pouring down rain, and she dragged herself into the pub soaking wet from head to toe. And according to IMDb, that scene was a direct nod to Suspiria. You guys probably remember the movie better than I do, but it seems right. But
okay, yeah, because after she ran from the cops, she was following Sandy, and that's when we were seeing a lot of those faceless men, and that's when she kind of fell backwards, and it looked like she hit her head actually, but that's when she stumbled into the I guess she was an hour late for work, and there was a customer waiting for her playing her song Eloise, which was kind of creepy.
Right.
And she ends up accusing him of being like this killer of this woman Sandy, and he's like telling her, "Hey, I knew all the girls," and
yeah, she dances around an actual accusation at first. She's trying to get him to admit it so she'll have evidence, and the things he says could be taken as incriminating. But then, when she straight up says you're Jack, he's like, no, you're crazy, something like that. And when he walks out and gets hit by the car, they're like, no, that's not his name at all.
Well, and before he gets hit by a car, he says, "Hey, when you see Alex, tell her I said hello."
Yeah. Yeah.
And now, that's when I think it kind of clicks.
Funny.
So he actually says Alex is the one that killed her.
Well, he had actually he had found her name. He had implied a lot. What's great about seeing it a second time is knowing who he is now. Because when I first saw this, I actually fell for the movie's trick and thought it was Jack.
Oh yeah, me too. I thought it was Jack too.
Even more so because the guy that was supposedly him looks eerily like Cillian Murphy, but it's apparently not him. So it looks like they brought someone in for a cameo that I guess they didn't, but I swear the guy could be his doppelganger. But I don't know if y'all would agree with me on that. But one funny thing about that whole scene, I think it's that scene, but definitely that set. Apparently the Toucan is an operating pub in Soho, and they did film some scenes there. And according to IMDb, as Wright, Edgar Wright, was setting up a shot of the stairs to the Toucan pub basement, Terrence Stamp remarked that they weren't fit for the movies. The Toucan later put up a plaque on the stairs reading, "These stairs aren't good enough to be in a movie, Terrence Stamp." I'm like, that's awesome. I love that.
Well, why don't we stop here and let's get Dustin's first-hand point of view.
Hey, Dustin.
Welcome, Dustin.
Yep, I'm still alive somehow.
Was this a first-time watch for you?
No, so this year I've been doing a lot of work on trying to clear out my watched movie pile. Well, my movies to watch pile. I have from the days when I would be able to go out and do movie collecting. I had tons and tons of titles just kind of piled up that I hadn't gotten to yet. And so the first of the year, I was going to try to watch one every day. And for the most part, I'm still pretty close there. So I've been doing that with I've been using Letterboxd to log what I watch. And this was one of the titles that I hit sort of early in the year. I want to say February, January was the first time I saw this movie. Because there was a lot of buzz about it, but for some reason it was just hard for me to find. And I picked it up at some point, I want to say last fall, when it finally went down to 10. And I was pretty happy with it. I thought it was awesome.
Okay.
I got I could feel very invested in the story. It's hard to explain. But the whole seeing ghosts and being able to kind of jump back in time into somebody else's body. It sort of fools you with making you think, okay, we're solving a mystery, for a brief period of time. And you kind of are, but it's not exactly what I think a less creative writer would have done. I know, I was very pleased with this movie. I have really no complaints about it at all.
Okay.
And so I was kind of surprised when I looked online and people were like, oh yeah, it kind of sucks. And it's like, how? I would like to know how.
I agree. I don't know how you cannot really like this film. It's definitely got some trippy moments and some reveals that I feel like at least the first time around, you don't quite get until they're revealed.
I have a feeling a lot of people would say that most of Edgar Wright's films, when Shaun of the Dead came out, everyone raved about it, and I've always been kind of neutral to it. And I remember when we discussed Scott Pilgrim, I was not prepared for the level of vitriol Dane had for that movie. So it happens, I guess.
I know I was pleasantly surprised with the movie because
Yeah.
I was bugging David. It's like, that looks cool. That looks cool. Yeah. He knows that I don't very often sit here and go, hey. In the movie we did last week, same thing, something about it caught my attention, So
Indeed.
Yeah, I think I ended up picking up both of these movies around the same time, so I was pleased with these pickups. But I believe that we had somewhat skated over the whole research scenes when she did some of that research.
Oh yeah, when she's after she sees after she sees the vision of the murder, and she's trying to find out what happened, in the library, how the visions that she's been having at night are bleeding into the daytime. In the library scene, is that where we're at?
Yeah, that's where we're at.
Right.
Yeah,
Well, one thing we find out is, and she kind of shrugs it off as well, it's London, but we find out there were quite a few disappearances and other shenanigans going on during about a 3-year stretch there at the end of the 60s. And I guess events later in the film hint that quite a few of those might have been related, but yeah, it was quite.
That was a trip where they brought her all those boxes.
Right.
I was like, wow.
Well, and I was kind of wondering what especially with the reveal of what those faceless men were later on, is what exactly were they trying to lead her to eventually? She was trying to figure out what was going on, and they stopped her from trying to figure out too much more. It's they wanted her help, and that's what we found out in a little bit. But
You know what's funny about these ghosts? My wife made the observation because she watched this with me. Matter of fact, she'll be watching most of the films with me this month because she actually likes most of the films, except for the last one. But she had said, she had made a Crimson Peak joke, but there's a lot of similarity in that because the ghosts are very much looking for the same thing. In this case, however, the ghosts aren't necessarily good people. And I like how this one really does blur the line about good versus evil in this. But yeah, those ghosts wanted her dead.
Well, yeah, like when we first encounter them, it's basically when she's back in time as Sandy. So it's not necessarily her that's being targeted, but they really wig her out so that when she starts seeing them later, it's easy to think that they could have been coming to her for help and she just totally missed it because she was so wigged out.
Oh, yeah. And
No, I think that ties into. I really liked how that resolved, actually, because I mean they, ended up. Well, we're gonna spoil it probably pretty soon, right?
Yep, I think we already have. We usually spoil stuff within the first 10 minutes.
I liked how that resolved in this particular story, where the ghosts are like, "Help us," and Ella's just like, "No." And she has that conversation with Alex. It's like they all deserved it. Like you saw what they did. I know.
Mm-hmm.
And they just like hold each other like in solidarity. And I thought that was usually like movies will kind of force like a morality narrative where it's like, yeah, you can't kill people, blah blah blah. But this was like, we understand why you did it, and honestly, it probably had to be done, so it's okay. And I'm mixing my messages up quite a lot there, but I don't know. I just like that concept of, avenge our spirits. It's like, well, maybe your spirits don't deserve to be avenged.
Yeah, but at the end of the result that you're talking about, you kind of feel for both sides. You kind of feel for all the ghosts. They got killed, but yet you feel for the person who killed them also.
I don't feel anything for the ghosts at all. Like, I feel bad for Alex/Sandy.
I think with some of that, like a lot of them, sure, what they were doing was not great, but really, and this may be part of the reason why they were nameless and faceless, but Jack was not. Jack is clearly the big douchebag. Like, he is the big, because he knew fully he was facilitating all of this. He was her quote unquote manager, but really he was her pimp, basically.
Yeah.
And he clearly is the one who deserves everything she gave to him, sent in his direction.
Yeah, he was the first she killed, and that was just kind of, I think it just kind of set off a thing in her head that these guys need to fucking die. They deserve it, and she's gonna be the one to do it. She got that first taste of blood. You know, like I said, like Angel was talking to Faith when she killed someone first. It's like you can kind of go either way the first time you kill someone.
And you get the strong impression that with her, it became the point where all men were faceless monsters, and she probably did kill people who did not deserve it.
I also think when she was chased, when Eloise was chased up into that upper room, Miss Collins, Alex, finally came through that door. This was the first time she'd actually came face to face with the ghosts of of her past, and I'm not sure she was entirely prepared for that either.
She had looked up there once before, I think at the beginning when she was showing the room, but she didn't stay there.
Right.
But in this particular, the way they set up the scene, I mean, that whole scene at the end, and I'll bring more on that when we talk about effects and so on, but the way they set up the scene where they would go back and forth between the older and the younger Sandy as she is coming up the stairs is so menacing and so impressive. And then going into that room and seeing all of that, knowing that they are still cowering before her in a lot of ways, even in death. It is
I kept waiting for her to kick her down the stairs, and finally it happened. I'm like, kick her down the stairs, kick her down the stairs.
Now, in all fairness, she was poisoned at the time and dying, so.
And
I get that, but still.
And you talk about menacing, that scene just before that where she's talking to Ellie in her room, and she comes clean about her past, or starts to at least. Before she really does, you start sensing the edge, and then she does, and then she's like, "Oh, but you won't tell anyone." And she's like, "Yeah, no, I won't." And she's like, "No,
I know you won't.
you're not going to tell anyone."
Yeah, even before
Just looks at her
Bruce,
fucking
he
key
asked
like,
her
oh shit.
Yeah,
if she was alone, and then of course her boyfriend John ends up knocking on the door.
You said you were alone, bitch.
yeah. Yeah, I gotta say, as swan song performances go, Diana Rigg did a good job with this one.
Yeah. She definitely did really, really good.
But yeah, so we get that that whole like ending scene where the reveal of the ghosts and the staircase scene, and then of course the boyfriend's been stabbed, and the place is a burn because the cigarette fell to the floor and started to burn everything.
Oh no, not the floor. She bumped it into a record, a bunch of records, which talk about something that'll go right up. Yeah.
But once everything is said and done, and she tells her to just get out of here, save yourself, save your boyfriend.
Yeah.
She does ultimately, but seeing her sit back there and burning up with the flames, that's kind of an interesting scene. And then
it was sad. Plus, you have like the young old like switching like repeatedly during that scene, so just show to like really kind of. I feel like some people might have missed that it was the same person just because of like how things are nowadays with audience intelligence. So I think they maybe did that one too many times just to emphasize, no, it's her. So I've seen some really, really dumb movie takes lately. Good Lord.
And I do like that we do kind of get like that fashion show that Eloise was a success. Afterwards.
She
that was really weird for the type of movie it was to have that cool happy ending, but it was cool.
I mean, it does end on a very strange note, though, which is kind of like you're kind of wondering because she sees her mother and then she sees Sandy at the very end. So she's clearly still seeing things. And if you read it as this was sort of a mental illness thing, then you can read it as the ending is, oh man, this is not really a happy ending.
But it's not mental illness.
If you read it as a clairvoyance thing, it's a much happier ending.
She has a sight.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read it as like she basically sees ghosts in mirrors sometimes, and I interpreted that as she learned from Sandy, from everything that happened to Sandy, and is able to draw from that, and so it's like a positive thing. Sandy's like, I'm with you.
Yeah, I think it actually helped her to be able
in
to
the
see her
beginning.
mother. So I don't think she was able to see her mother before that, except in the picture. but then the picture was lost in the fire.
She saw her mother in the beginning, like in
she
in
saw
her
her.
room. So I think she
Okay.
sees both of them just fine.
Oh, I missed that part.
Yeah.
I
Before I started
took
gluing
it
my eyes
as
onto the TV.
I took it as both of these ghosts were telling her that they're okay, and you know,
Exactly. That's what I thought too.
Yeah. Either way, she's kind of taken what she's turned what was a pretty major weight around her and turned it into a positive, basically.
You know, they could totally make a TV show out of this.
What's that?
They could totally make a TV show out of this where it like solves crimes through fucking seeing the ghosts and shit. You know, I know they've done stuff similar, but you know, this wouldn't be a unique spin on that kind of TV show.
yeah, I could see. I could see that. I know Ghost Whisperer kind of did.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of when I said that. That it's kind of like Ghost Whisperer, but again, like a little bit of a twist.
And the
That
Dead Zone kind of did some of that too. Stephen King's Dead Zone series. So,
well, I mean, they did everything. So, like Twilight Zone probably did something too. I'm sure.
but yeah, I believe we're at the end here. So let's go into production. Dustin, what did you think about the production?
Well, I thought this movie was beautiful. Like all the lighting and like the atmosphere in a lot of the shots was just fantastic. And also a lot of the really cool trick shots too, with like when Sandy and Ellie are like facing each other in the beginning. But when Ellie thinks she's looking into a mirror and she's seeing Sandy, you guys know that they're both there, like just like standing in front of each other. Like there's no mirror, there's no digital trickery. They're just miming each other. Like that's filmed live.
Right, a lot of practical effects in this.
And it works fantastically.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I was really kind of blown away by a lot of this imagery too. And I'd always thought the 60s was like a boring, like stuffy kind of period. I mean, yeah, there were like, colors and stuff, but it didn't really come alive to me in any meaningful way until it's like, oh, okay, so
Wow, what the heck have you been watching?
Most 60s stuff kind of sucks. So
you ever watch Austin Powers?
Austin Powers is more of a comedy. It's more.
It is, but a lot of shit that happened. Like, I mean, I've seen other movies that weren't as much of a comedy that definitely mirrored what happened in the 60s. I mean, there was a lot of psychedelic drugs in the 60s, and sex and peace, type things. It was a very free time, and I mean, look at Woodstock and shit.
Let's put it this way, like in stuff like Austin Powers, like that backdrop is kind of played like for laughs, like they're sort of poking fun at it.
Yeah, but it's definitely
and then in like other footage, and then in like other footage of that time period, just because of like the video quality and stuff, like it just seems kind of muted. Whereas here, like it's being used like to tell like a more serious story,
right?
With like with like a full effects budget, so you can see how vivid everything would have been if you were there. And it's like it finally kind of popped out to me.
Right, I definitely say go watch Austin Powers again, and then you can kind of see, oh shit, this was more closer to I mean, obviously there was definitely a lot of comedy that overdid stuff, but there was still a lot of realism there. To catch the vibe. I mean, look at the psychedelic shirts and shit that they wore, and just 60s was all about love, peace, and freedom and shit. Big riots and stuff because of the wars and stuff. London and here, was crazy.
Alrighty. How about you, Tammy? What did you think about the production here?
I thought it was great. I mean, I loved, you know, the the whole setback in time type of thing, and you know you know how she's like watching what's going on. You know, like she's like really there, but and watching what's going on. That whole effect I thought was really neat. I liked um the music, the dress, the everything. I mean, I thought they did a really good job of everything, and it and how they made everything happen. It makes you feel like you were the main character watching all this stuff going on and trying to figure out what was going on. You know, you were her trying to figure it out. You know, so I thought they did a really good job with that.
Okay. Um, Heading over to you, Brandon. What did you think about production?
Well, I thought it was amazing. I mean, all of the various scenes from the setups that we've had, um, it was very much, uh, it's just very much amazing to watch. I mean, it was just super impressive. Going back to the 60s, replicating the fashions, the nightclubs, and a lot of the things, like I say, I really loved how they did the ending, especially. I mean, where you've got the cuts to her, to him, all the smoke around, the fire burning, uh, the old woman changing to the younger woman and slashing viciously as she's climbing up the stairs, which go from the old stairs to these mirror stairs that would have been in as one of the nightclubs. It's just an amazing thing. I would say that makeup hair design, for instance, this probably should have gotten more awards than it did, just because
Yeah.
there's so much there, so much fashion, so much amazing stuff down to the nitty gritty of the fashion school or to the complexity of the showgirls.
Okay. Um, is that pretty much it then for you?
Yep, yep.
Alrighty. Heading over to you, Kroll. What did you think about production?
Pretty friggin' awesome. I mean, you know, the whole like everyone mentioned, how, you know, she's like switching between, you know, herself and the other girl, and you know, it definitely made you wonder exactly what's going on, but the production value just made it so great, you know. And then later when they added the ghost in, and then they were like the faceless man, and you know, wherever she went, they were like chasing her down, and um holding her back and stuff, and it was just really well done. And then of course I think the grand finale, the bedroom scene, you know, the fire, and the fight up the stairs, and her switching back and forth between the younger and the older version, and then into the room, and then her being you know, grabbed by all the hands and stuff. It was just absolutely amazing job what they did with that movie. I mean, it was just like the whole movie. They did such a great job of building it up from the start to the end, and then they really gave you an awesome climax of spectacular effects. And yeah, I mean, movies like this, you know, don't always have the best effects, but you know, best effect. You know, when you say effect, think about effect, you think of, you know, big budget movies and action movies or sci-fi or something. But damn, they went all out on this movie, and definitely give them some props on the effects of this movie. They kicked ass. That's my opinion.
Okay. Heading over to you, Jake. What did you think about production?
Well, I've already touched on it, but I really think it was pretty phenomenal. Again, that opening dance sequence where they were subbing between Thomasin McKenzie and Anya Taylor-Joy, and it was all one fluid motion, and you couldn't even tell. And again, apparently that was choreography and camera work. I thought it was editing at first, but either way, that was done so seamlessly, and I was very impressed. All the camera work trickery that they did with the work with mirrors and all that stuff, switching between the girls, switching later between Taylor-Joy and Rig once we had the reveal about Sandy. But also, and I think Brandon touched on like the costumes and makeup. Real quick on the idea of Dustin, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm guessing by you saying the 60s are kind of muted, you were talking probably about how kind of going into the 60s, we were kind of in the Technicolor era where everything was like really super saturated, but it was still a limited color palette. And then going into the 70s, movies were really dark and gritty. And like, so the 60s kind of were in the middle of that. And I'll agree with you. If you look at the film stock, is nowhere near as rich and vibrant as the film on this one. But
yeah, I would compare it to like a faded photo kind of thing.
I would say it's
like
probably good, but
material things are recorded on kind of washes out over time. That's kind of what I was trying to get across.
I would say as far as the actual backgrounds, like I think I saw Kroll's point, but bear in mind again, the Austin Powers, that's late 90s. They had much different film that they were working with. But I did see some films in the late 60s. Of course, when she orders a Vesper, that right there is a Bond reference. The original Bond film was Casino Royale, and Casino Royale is a very psychedelic film. It's a very bright and colorful and weird looking film. But yeah, I'll admit that the film probably looks a little faded today. I mean, that's just, it happens with age. But I will say for me, between the soundtrack and the fashions and the set design, they were trying to create a film that, at least in the past sequences, really, really did try to bring the London Soho, 60s Soho to life. And I think they did that beautifully. I'm becoming convinced that Edgar Wright is someone who's really, really into detail, and it might be one reason why he only does a movie every few years. Like Hot Fuzz was the perfect mashup of buddy cop films. Like it really, really anything that you would want to bring in. And he really, really nailed the buddy cop film. Scott Pilgrim was a live action video game. It really was. It was a live action
great
video
movie
game.
Too. Both were great movies.
And and Baby Driver got Oscar love for the soundtrack. It's one of the only films where the use of music actually got it an Oscar nomination for sound, which I think there should be a use of music Oscar, but still the fact that the use of music was so integral to that film, because Baby had his music that he played all the time, and that was like integral to his character. So Edgar Wright really, really, really gets into the weeds on detail with his movies, and I think it shows. I really do. I mentioned before how this was definitely a nod in some ways to Argento. It was a nod to Hitchcock. It was a nod to the Bond films. It was a nod to the Audrey Hepburn films. There's a lot of stuff that you see very clear nods to in this movie. And Doctor Who might have been one of them. Having one of the Doctor Who's might very well have been a very intentional casting choice. Definitely having Diana Rigg, Terrence Stamp, and a couple of the others, they were big names in the late 60s, early 70s. So that was very intentional casting to help bring that place into the film. So yeah, I think overall they just I really think they went all out trying to bring that whole package together, and I really think they did a good job of it, basically.
Okay. And I thought that the production was spot on. I mean, there are so many fabulous colors and camera tricks that you know I don't think I'd seen before, like to this caliber. And bringing back like the '60s in that kind of a way, in like a noir, like um, like mystery vibe kind of thing. I loved everything about this production, and I think that shows in Edgar Wright's cinematography and the choreography that went and was involved in this, and like Jake, like you said, is attention to detail, and getting things down to a certain T, and making sure certain characters kind of hid the real things that were going on in this film. And I think it just brought it to a circle of. I believe that this film is a masterpiece.
I need to say something real quick, guys. I just looked this up, right? And I was looking up the director and stuff. And this is actually his worst rated film. Not saying it was badly rated, but on Rotten Tomatoes, it got 76%, which is pretty high on Rotten Tomatoes. But
Right.
it's just actually his lowest rated film because all his other films are just so good. Just want to throw it in there.
Well, and the fact that all of us seem to really like this film it goes to say a lot, because
we don't
when
always
we're
agree.
all on the same page,
We don't often agree on a movie.
when we're all on the same page, that means it is and was a good movie.
Yeah.
So, that being said, let's go into. I know we. Some of us mentioned the music. What did we think about the soundtrack here?
Oh shit, he screenwrited Ant-Man.
Yeah, yeah. That was, if I remember correctly, I think that was the early draft that Disney thought was too edgy. But, and yeah, if I remember correctly, he was the director for Ant-Man, and they kicked him out and brought in Peter Reed. So, yeah, he had a hand in that, but yeah.
Anyway, getting to the music, so I suddenly have something I kind of have to take care of. So getting to the music, so normally I don't like this vintage '60s songs kind of stuff, but it really worked in this, and I was pretty happy with it.
Yeah, it boasts quite a few like songs from that era. Just to name a few: "World Without Love," "Wishing and Hoping," "Don't Throw Your Love Away," "Water the Sunset," "Beat Girl." The list goes on. I mean, there are quite a few from that era. So, I mean, if there was any that you guys wanted to point out, go ahead and shoot.
Well, it's worth pointing out that Anya Taylor-Joy did do her own singing, so that's always kind of fun. She did a fair job with it.
Yeah, she had a very unique voice, but it was very pleasing. Not super powerful, but very pleasing, and I like it.
Oh yeah, I definitely thought so. anyone doesn't want to say anything else about the music, then we shall go into.
Well, yeah, I definitely, 60s music is sometimes, I mean, there's a lot of it I like. Some of it a little overplayed. I don't know. My mom played it all the time, so it's overplayed for me. 50s and 60s. But yeah, I mean, I like movies with the music in it, mostly. Definitely the Beatles. But
Well,
this,
there is a Lennon McCartney song in here.
yeah. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think the music was great. I mean, obviously it fit the movie perfectly. She was obsessed with the '60s, so it made sense that she loved '60s music, and of course, the old lady, knowing who she was, I mean, of course, she definitely was into the '60s music as well, and so it just it perfectly it was perfect sense to be in this movie, and all the choices they had. I mean, they didn't really pick super popular choices. I mean, they were familiar choices, but they weren't super popular. So they weren't like just trying to throw super popular 60s songs at you. They picked songs that really fit the movie and fit the mood. So it just, helped set the mood just like they did with everything else in the movie. So, I mean, the person that did the score, which I'm sure Dave will tell us,
Oh.
you know, did an awesome job.
I will say I love the movie's use of the song "Always There to Remind Me" or something.
Always there to remind me. Yeah. Yeah, like I said, all the songs are great. Sometimes I'm hit or miss with music on things. Sometimes it's like I really love it, or other times it's just like, was it there? I didn't really notice it much, But yeah, I definitely noticed it here, and I definitely thought it fit perfectly. And like I said, they didn't like they didn't go for like just cheap '60s
Yeah, they
music.
didn't
They
hit you over the
they
head.
they,
No.
they chose they chose the correct songs for the movie. So yeah, definitely 3 thumbs up again on that one.
Yeah, that kind of main theme that they used a lot, like I think, is it "You're My World"? Like that's the lyric I remember from it. Like
The Lennon McCartney song, maybe.
I don't remember it super well. It's just kind of like
Oh, okay, yeah.
I used it a few times, and I just remember like the feel of how it sounds. I don't remember the lyrics.
Yeah, "You're My World," performed by Cilla Black. So there is a song called "You're My World." So yeah, but let's get into favorite scenes and/or favorite character. Dustin, did you want to take a gander at it?
Well, I think my favorite scene is either I think it's probably the first time that Ellie does travel to into Sandy's body through the past. Because it's really impressive. Like I was actually sitting there like wowed, by the visuals, and just imagining like what an amazing experience that would be for someone who was so interested in the time period, and just suddenly like you're there and you're, you look like somebody everybody wants to talk to. Like you're, it was kind of overwhelming. Like I thought all the effects and everything just were firing on all cylinders with that sequence. And I think the other scene I have would be I would call a favorite too, is the finale where we see, here's what really happened, and here's how it's kind of everybody's dreams turn to ashes with the ghosts, and like finally there's some resolution to like the things that happened in the '60s, because like Ellie thought that the '60s were great, everything was awesome all the time, and it's like, well, no period in history is like that. So you're seeing the downsides of what it was like that too.
There's always a darkness to any period.
Not the '80s. It was perfect.
Oh no, it wasn't.
But
at any rate, though, so that was my favorite sequence, and I think I mean, we don't have a whole lot of characters in this movie to pick from, so I don't want to just be like, oh yeah, Ellie, or oh yeah, Sandy. But like both of them, like felt like they had some parallels to them. Like Ellie wanted to be a designer, like Sandy wanted to be like a singer, and it was kind of like their ambition that sort of like brought them together in that weird way. And I think I maybe liked Ellie a little bit more because Ellie seems to have like a good amount of character growth. Like she becomes more confident and like less nervous around other people. More or less using some of the the lessons from the past. Like she spends time like in Sandy's body and starts dressing like Sandy and is able to be like a little bit more confident, a little bit more bold. And I enjoyed that about her character.
Yeah, she definitely learned a lot from Sandy.
What about you, Brandon? If you could take and have a favorite scene or favorite character?
I enjoyed, like I say, I enjoyed that last scene coming up the stairs with the building on fire, all of that. As far as characters, I gotta go with the old cop. He's my favorite out of all of them.
Okay. How about you, Jake? If you could pick a favorite character and or favorite scene.
Well, there's I always have trouble picking clear favorites, but I love that first sequence, like going into the club, especially that first dance sequence. I just thought was just pretty, very well done, very, very, very well done.
It was
And I will
60s, but
say
it wasn't in your face.
Probably the moment, or a couple of the moments between Ellie and Mrs. Collins. The one when Ellie said, "I just prefer the music from back then," and just Miss Collins' reaction to that. And then, of course, where she tips her hand and she's like, "Oh yeah, and no, I know you won't be telling anyone." Basically. Just that whole scene was just really great. And overall, it's tempting to say Miss Collins might be my favorite overall character. I really like Ellie. I'm not as fond of Sandy, but the fact that I am such a fan of both of the actresses and their performances were so spot on, I really feel like when either Sandy or Ellie is on screen, I'm really invested in what's going on. So maybe a tie with Miss Collins just edging ahead, maybe.
Okay. Heading over to you, Tammy. What are your thoughts on favorite scene and favorite character?
Well, favorite character, it's really hard to choose between Ellie and Sandy because there was so much I liked from both of them. You know, they both, you know, whichever one was on at the time brought it. They brought what was going on, and they kept you interested in what they were doing. So, for a favorite scene, I guess I kind of got a logo with everybody else so far. I really do like the first time when you meet Sandy and that whole scene there. I thought that was really great. So,
Okay. Heading over to you, Kroll. What were your favorite scene or scenes or favorite character?
Ellie was favorite character. I mean, like Tammy just said, there's definitely a lot to like about Sandy as well. I mean, even when you find out she's the murderer and yeah, she's kind of trying to take Ellie out, but I mean, she kind of killed a lot of people, and you kind of understand she doesn't want to get that out, but she at least didn't want her to go out violently. Like she's like she even said she didn't want it to come to that. So like you know she had to take her out, but she didn't want to. So she did it. She tried to do it in a nicer way, at least. I mean, So even when she's being more villainous, she wasn't that much of a villain. You know what I'm saying? Like the guys, they deserved brutal death. You know what I'm saying? They fucking deserved it. They basically raped her. I mean, yeah, she didn't say no, but like she was basically being forced, by her pimp manager and everything else, and that whole lifestyle that she was just fucking stuck in. So just basically they're like taking advantage of it and just raping her. And finally she just had enough and she gone back. So I mean, I never really saw her that much of a villain, even when except for when she did try to kill Ellie. Definitely understood why, but
Yeah, that's a good thing to point out. Like that, the rage that she killed people with, like in those flashbacks, was like reserved for the men.
yeah, the ones that deserved it. Yeah. Now, also, as far as scenes go, there's a couple I gotta mention. Three actually. I agree with you guys that first scene where she goes back in the past and she's like looking in the mirror and the other girl, it's Ellie and it's Sandy, and then the dance and everything was just kind of really, it's definitely like the dance is kind of like Swim but different. So it brought the '60s, but it just didn't put it in your face like other movies just kind of do the same type of dance. But it was sensual, but the dance of the time too. I mean, they really blended it well together to make it something unique and something from that time period. So that's definitely an awesome scene. Another scene that nobody has mentioned. Was when she was sitting there talking to the cop. Well, we don't realize he's a cop yet. That particular moment, but she's talking to him, and Ellie's just screaming and saying, "Look at me, look at me," and pounding into the glass and like breaking the glass and grabbing her. That whole scene was really fucking awesome. She was really, really trying to help her and change what happened and stuff. It was really, really fucking awesome scene. And of course, again, what Brandon mentioned, the final scene, and I already mentioned too, the whole fire, the fight up the stairs, the changing faces, the bedroom scene, the ghosts, and that whole final finale was just fucking fantastic. So I mean, if I had to choose, that's my favorite scene, but the other two are definitely high mentions because they were just fucking phenomenal. The whole movie was really well done. I don't think there was a scene in the movie that was boring or I didn't like. I guess the very beginning of it, I kind of quite hadn't glued my eyes to the TV, so I didn't quite catch what was going on. So maybe that was slightly slower, but but yeah, I'll definitely check this movie out again, so I'll be able to catch what I missed in the beginning, and definitely catch what I missed about the movie, because I'm sure there'll be a lot, like you guys mentioned. One of the movies you're gonna watch the second time. So yeah, definitely. And I would like to mention that, not a favorite, but I really, really liked the boyfriend. He was a really good guy. I mean, he was right from the beginning. He was just a good guy. He was a nice guy to her. He was never really seemed like that guy just trying to get in her pants or anything. He just, I mean, he was just always there for her. Just always there for her, always around to help her out. And even when he realized he drank her Coke, he bought her another Coke and said sorry on it. Just like just totally he was always there for her, you know, and being that nice guy, but instead of like nice guys finish last and like a lot of things, he actually got the girl. Of course, he did get stabbed for her too, but you know, he got the girl. So yeah, I really just wanted to mention that he's definitely a great supporting actor and supporting character, and I did really like him.
Of course, he did steal her Coke, and would he have replaced it if it was not a really cute person? Who knows?
We don't know, but yeah, I mean, you know, he replaced it anyways, you know. Right? I mean, it was just kind of funny. He was like, "Chicken, oh, my name's Ellie." And he's like, "Oh shit, this is you!" Again, like he knew he was drinking
Right.
someone was named Ellie's Coke, and well, what
Totally
happened?
random. Totally random trivia. Supposedly, Edgar Wright has been told that if he was born a girl, his name would have been Jocasta. So that's probably why he named the bitch Jocasta.
Okay, that's weird. Well, there was one weird thing I wanted to mention about the movie. That scene of the party, like she comes out with the blanket on, wrapped around her in like this party, instead of like in her room, and sits in a chair in a corner, and then falls asleep. Like, what was the point of that? Like, that was just weird, you know. Just super, super, super weird. Like she wanted to kind
Well,
of.
they were having the party in her dorm room, and
Right, I
that's
understand that.
exactly
So,
because
but she
No,
still
the party
sat in
was
the
in a
middle
common
of
area
the
in the
party.
dorm.
She sat in the middle of the party to go fall asleep. Like, who does that? You know?
I think the idea is: would you rather be trying to tune out an entire party, or would you rather be trying to tune out your girl, your roommate getting it on with no other distractions at all whatsoever?
Oh yeah. I forgot the roommate was having
Yeah,
sex. I
well,
forgot in the first place.
yeah, she was having
Yeah.
sex too, but she was blatantly having parties to piss her off. I believe that was the case. She was a party girl, her roommate, and yeah. But that
Well,
being
they all seem to party. I think I mean, from most college movies we've seen, they like to party. You know, I mean,
well, again, yeah.
I don't think that's anything against her personally. Just they just like to fucking party, and that was the dorm that they happened to be partying at. You know, just happened to be at the same time that her roommate was getting banged. You know, so
I got the impression it was just kind of a start of the semester sort of welcome party, and the
right,
whole
yeah.
because like I said, it looked like it was in the dorm common area.
Yeah, it was. I mean, so it wasn't like in her room. It's just like I said, that was the dorm that they chose to party in. You know, I'm sure there was other dorms around, but you know,
Yeah, it was
'cause-
clearly like day 2 before classes because like her first day of class was pretty shortly after that.
yeah,
Right.
no, I'm sure that's pretty common in college for them to have last hurrah before school and stuff. I'm not
Oh,
saying
yeah.
they're not going to party through the school year, but you know, maybe with that particular school, maybe a little less
Oh,
because it was a little more fancy and you know, um,
No,
in its own niche.
I absolutely I remember fully from college. That's probably not a weird thing. I know that, at college it would be hey Kyle. It would be not uncommon, like, oh, we arrived yesterday, today. A couple people will trickle in tomorrow, but classes start tomorrow. We're mostly here. Let's all get hammered. That's not an uncommon thing in college. Yeah.
well, and I think that my favorite character would probably be Mrs. Collins.
Old or young?
Specifically because I've seen Diana Rigg in many other roles. The fact that this was her song, and she's still able to pull off some iron towards the end of the film, that just shows what kind of brass that she brought to the table. But I do like Ellie and Sandy. The parallels that they have together, the ambition, as you said, Dustin, that brought them together. I mean, it was cool, and I liked definitely the beginning scenes, the contrast, the camera tricks. There was a fourth wall breaking moment where I think she screamed at, I believe Eloise screamed at one of the people in the 60s, and they actually turned and looked at her. I think that happened at least once, but I do like the moment that she tells her boyfriend John, "Hey, if I'm not back in 10 minutes, do something." And goes in and sees Mrs. Collins. That whole ending scene, I fucking love. So, just the whole staircase scene, it's definitely another dimension. But other than that, did anyone else have anything else to add?
Apparently, Diana Rigg was in the one Bond film with the best Bond. She was in On Her Majesty's Secret Service. So, good to know.
Oh yeah, she has definitely had her share of roles to bring to the table. So,
Yeah.
anything else? All righty, good deal. So hopefully everyone out there has enjoyed our discussion on this film. Like, share, and subscribe. And hopefully you'll be back next week where we'll have a wet, hot American summer coming up, right?
Right.
Let's
yeah.
go.
It's moving into my birthday territory after that. Even though Dave's birthday is about a week before mine.
So why don't we go around, see who we are? Let's start with you, Tammy. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do?
Well, I'm David's fiance. I go on this channel and another and talk about movies. I have my own collection of movies, and I just enjoy going on this and the other channel to just get opinions, and most of the time watch different movies I've never heard of. Most of the time. But now that it's summer, I enjoy taking my 1972 Grand Prix out and about.
Alrighty. How about you, Dustin? Tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do.
Well, I live here in Milwaukee, and I collect horror movie stuff. Pretty much all we do. So I have a YouTube channel, The Crypt of Horrors, where I am trying valiantly to make new stuff for you guys. Hasn't been going great. A lot of setbacks. But we're trying. So I also post on my letterbox as Cryptaxis, where I do the one movie a day thing. I haven't logged my last 6 or 7 movies, but I'm working on that. And we're just about to parody. So, and I'm also on Twitter as Your Cryptaxis, where I hang out way too much, and you can talk to me there. And the Instagram is also The Crypt of Horrors, which I posted a little bit better on there. So, and with that, I am going to head out. Good night, guys. Watch Last Night in Soho. It's awesome.
Yep, try to have a good evening.
Good night.
All right, bye.
Alrighty. Heading over to you, Kroll. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do?
Well, I am Kroll, aka Ron. I am a marketer of solutions. We have everyone has some kind of problem, and we have just about have a solution for almost everything. We don't do romance though, so out of luck there. Uh, I have my own Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Pinterest, Snapchat. Um, TikTok, Twitter, and of course my own YouTube channel, Coronation 73. So check it out, guys. I have just reached my 100th video that I put on there. The channel, I made a channel a couple of years ago, or whatever, but I made like one video in all that time. But I started making videos less than 2 months ago. So, and I've already hit 100 videos on there. Most of them are shorts, but still, I think it's pretty good. Don't have a lot of subscribers yet, but I'm pushing it out there. Hopefully, some people will it'll get up to the right audience, and I get some more people actually checking it out. I do get some views, so that's good. I just maybe not the right crowd to subscribe. That's cool. It's fun. I love the products that I'm marketing, and today I just got a thing in the mail. I signed up to sponsor a child through SOS Children's Program, and I'm sponsoring a 12-year-old girl that lives out in Peru. That is now being just gotten a new house with a foster parent with her siblings. Not sure what happened to her parents, but yeah. So just want to point that up there. It's an awesome charity. They help kids all over the world in the U.S. as well as everywhere in the world. Ever look for a charity, you should look into that one. That's about it.
Okay. Heading over to you, Jake. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do? Jake?
Sorry. I'm Kotobukijake. I am the co-host on occasion of the YouTube channel, SeptumSin versus World. And I also keep quite busy with my day job, as it were. But I also am the co-founder of RVA Homegrown Natives, where we grow and sell native plants at markets and at wholesale. Also, I do occasional talks, and I did give a talk this past week on wildlife in the garden, so that went pretty well, and that was always fun. So it keeps me pretty busy, but and I will admit I'm trying very hard to get more in a good headspace to use my off time to watch more movies, especially with the Versus Awards coming up. But I do make some time each week to watch film so I can join these folks for our discussions, and it oftentimes leads to very interesting films and interesting discussions. And again, this was one that I quite enjoyed the first time and quite enjoyed revisiting. And yeah, it's always fun to see what other folks have to say on these, you know?
Okay. Is that pretty much it then for you?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Heading over to you, Brandon. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
SeptumSin versus the World. We discuss movies and collecting movies and all that. Not a lot to say. I mean, we did a discussion on To Love Ru not long ago. Let's see. The things that we're working on now kind of keep us more focused on those projects. We just did a whole bunch of filming today. Jake could tell you that for the movie Amityville Webcam. I feel actually more secure to talk about that as a project because I've looked at it, and out of all the edited stuff, though, you know, a little bit more tweaking needs to be done, such as sound effects and so on. We have about 30 minutes of film that has been edited so far and ready. So, you know, we're 15 minutes away from feature film status, and that's great because we haven't collected a lot of the stuff left in the movie. So we've got the very beginning and the very end done, though. So, hey, that's a good thing. And for those of you who are so eager to see how terrible a movie I can make, and believe me, it is terrible, very worthy of the Amityville name these days. Very much worthy of the Amityville name these days. You can go to the channel now, and we have a scene where my cat... decided to photobomb us for the scene, and we decided to leave it in.
Yes, Mr. Anderson will be the lead nominee for Best Cameo or Bit Player, whatever year this finally gets released.
Awesome. And is that it for you then?
Yep, that's it. We don't have much else. I mean, you can look on the channel. We did post a couple of things a couple weeks back. I mean, a week or so back, and I plan on doing little things as I go. It's just going to be very uneven updates as time goes until we can get some of this done. We are editing. Actually, not we. I am editing episode 3 of our gaming series where we're going to be talking about some gaming movies that are directly linked to gaming. And let's see, that's I never can remember what we call it. Was it D&D Hell or something like that, or no, tabletop horror?
Yeah,
tabletop horror. And we are and right now we've been covering mostly horror films in the tabletop genre, so I guess it fits for that. But Wet Hot American Summer is going to be our 4th entry in that as well. So we're going to be covering 2 birds with one stone.
Alrighty.
First non-horror D&D movie.
Very cool. And my name is David Sterry. I'm one of the founding fathers of Inside Movies Galore. So thank you for coming along with us on this fantabulous journey we've been having. We've been talking about films of all natures, and I think we enjoy going on about them. So, but I do moonlight under a different channel where we also go on the podcast, kind of doing the same thing. And this next Sunday, we're doing Friend of Requests. So I guess keep a lookout for that discussion when it pops on our Delusions of Grandeur channel. And other than that, I do some video pickups and some video reviews from time to time. So check out some of those. And currently still working on an anthology that has been dragging its heels, but hopefully be able to get something done out of it. But I know Tammy is waiting to fly the coop here in a couple of days. She's going to have a 14-day vacation from me. So, like, share, and subscribe. Note down in the comments what you thought of this film. And we'll see you back next week.
Same that time, same that channel.
Everyone say good night.
Good night.
Good day.
Night.